Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Kayla and I make videos about all things BPD. Now, if you have been following along, you will know that I have been releasing videos that talk about the different symptoms of BPD. Today we're going to be placing the emphasis on the third symptom, which is these identity disturbances, and I'm also going to be sharing tips and tricks on how to help with this specific symptom. The DSM characterizes this third symptom as identity disturbances, and more precisely as persistent, unstable sense of self and self-image, and it's the feeling that you don't know who you are or what you believe in. A lot of the times individuals who have this issue will notice radical shifts in their self-image, and this is often characterized by shifting goals, values, and even vocational aspirations. So one day you might want to be a painter, and then next day you might want to be a doctor. When it comes to personality disorders, we see the identity disturbances as stable across the various areas of their lives. This is unlike the manic phases of bipolar disorder, for example, where the individual might have a radical departure and shift in their career plans. They might have all of these very big ideas, but those go away. With BPD, we see this indecisiveness of self really at work, with friends, when they're alone, with their values, their religion. It really is affected amongst all of the areas of their lives. There may also be more subtle changes in opinions, friends, sexual identity. You may have someone with BPD who one moment associates to one group, so hipsters, for example, for one moment, and then another group the next, but fundamentally they don't truly feel like they fit in anywhere. So because they don't subscribe to either culture, they move in between, hoping that the culture will eventually define them so that they could finally get a sense of peace. But this tends not to work because the emphasis is placed on this external locus of control, and we're just there hoping that the world is going to place an understanding on us so that one day we're finally just going to get it. We're going to know who we are and know what we want in life. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. We tend to think that we're the lead actor in the movie of our lives. Realistically, that's not true. Everyone thinks that about themselves, and the world keeps going regardless of if we're here or not. And so it's really up to us to determine who we are, to self-explore into the most deep crevices of our being, to figure out what matters to most in life and what it is that makes us happy. Within this concept of identity disturbances, we also have this principle of identity diffusion. Now, this reflects the inability to integrate positive and negative self-representations. So those with BPD might see themselves as either a victim or a victimizer, or submissive or dominant. And what this leads to is this constant shifting roles of who they are as a person, which can lead to an inner sense of emptiness. Now that we understand what identity disturbances is, I want to talk about what we can do to help with this specific symptom. The first thing I will recommend is to define your values. Now, defining your values is such a critical piece in understanding and building a strong sense of self. I know that this might be daunting to do because there's a million values that exist out there, and if you've been told your whole life by others who you should be, what you should want and like in life, it can be really hard to distinguish what values belong truly to yourself and which ones belongs to others. So instead of starting by looking at these long, extensive lists of values online, and please, if that's the way that you operate, you can do that as well, and circling them, you can start by looking at your daily life. So what do you do on a regular basis? And the activities that you do might point to values that actually belong to you. So for example, I love using Google Calendar. I love having to-do lists and reminders. So when I looked at my day, I noticed that every single day I use these tools, and that pointed to the fact that I value being organized. So that's one of my core values: organization, being on time, all of those fun things. And before, I wouldn't have put Google Calendar as something that goes into my values, but when you look at it that way, it actually goes into that. Another example for me personally is that although I like to eat healthy-ish, I also love baking and I love eating cookies and desserts. So typically in my days, I will have healthy-ish meals and I'll have a cookie for dessert, or I'll have something during the day as a snack that's unhealthy, quote unquote. And that when I looked at my days, I noticed that that was a pattern, which led me to reflect on the fact that balance is a big value of mine. Although I also value health, to me, being balanced leads me to have a more fulfilling life. The second thing I will recommend would be to identify your interests. Now, spend some time alone with yourself, get to know yourself, ask yourself, what brings me joy in life? What interests me? This can be a really good exercise to helping you define what your goals are and what your career plans or aspirations might be. One thing that I learned is that being general rather than too specific in my interests is not a bad thing. So instead of saying that I have a pure 100% interest in teaching or being a doctor, my interest can rather be that I like helping others, and this can be a guiding factor in my decisions for my career. For someone who has identity disturbances and anxiety, having very specific goals can feel limiting and provoke more of this existential angst. Now, I know that the opposite is also true, that for some individuals, if you have very general things or statements, it might cause more anxiety. So trying to figure out what works best for you. I know for me, when I first started defining who I was and what interested me, it was more beneficial to start broader and then go more specific. But if the opposite works better for you, obviously do that. Another thing that you can do is to do personality tests. There's a bunch of great free ones online. So we have 16 personalities, Principles You. I'll just link all those in the show notes down below. But doing those can help to identify what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, where you tend to be more drawn. Are you more of a people's person? Do you like working on your own? And this can help to break down not only who you are, but what your values are and what's important to you. The last thing I will recommend is to spend some time alone. Now, self-exploration can help define yourself based on qualities rather than external things. So for example, being a parent, being a student, your ethnicity. And although all those things are great and they are a part of who you are, that's not the entirety of your being. There's different things that people can see from just looking at you or reading a quick overview of your life. So spending some time getting to know those deeper qualities within yourselves can be a great tool to help combat these identity disturbances and this feeling of not knowing who you are. When it comes to your identity, it's important to have an open mind and to be flexible with it, because your values, your goals, your aspirations, your preferences will change with time. You're not going to be this static person who remains the same for the remainder of your life. So just keeping this flexible growth mindset throughout this whole process of uncovering who you are can be really helpful in facilitating the entirety of the process. If you found this video useful, be sure to give it a like. It is great for the YouTube algorithm, which means that YouTube will recommend my videos to more people, which means that more people will get more information about BPD, and this will help to break down the stigma about this misunderstood mental illness. And if you're not already, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button down below, as well as the bell notification up top to get notified when I post more videos every Monday. On that note, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you back here next time for another episode of On the Line.